The presidential putt, Trump's 47 days and $65 million golf tab, a deep dive into cost, controversy and accountability. Hook * imagine your boss taking nearly 50 days off in just half a year, while billing you millions for their hobby. Now imagine that boss is the President of the United States. Welcome to the staggering reality of Donald Trump's first 7 months in office. 47 vacation days and over $65 million taxpayer dollars spent on golf. This isn't just leisure, it's a multi-million-dollar habit with profound implications. Strap in, we're dissecting the cost, the context, and the constitutional concerns. Expanded questions driving the analysis. 1. The core accounting. Precisely how was the $65+ million figure calculated? What specific cost categories, transportation, security, lodging, course fees, staff overtime, contribute most significantly? Beyond the headline $65 million, what are the hidden or indirect costs, e.g., diverted agency resources, impact on local economies, opportunity cost of presidential time? How does Trump's per day and per trip golfing cost compare dollar for dollar with previous presidents, Obama, Bush, Clinton, at similar points in their presidencies and favorite courses? Is it accurate to call these days off? What official work, if any, was conducted during these trips? How transparent was the White House about this work? What specific Secret Service, military, Air Force, Coast Guard, and White House staff expenditures are directly attributable to golf outings at Mar-a-Lago, Bedminster, and Trump-owned courses? 2. Historical context and precedent. Presidential leisure. How does Trump's rate of vacation, days/month, compare to Obama, Bush Jr., Clinton, Reagan, and even the famously vacationing W.H. Taft? Is 47 days in 7 months truly unprecedented? Cost evolution. How have the costs of protecting and transporting a president escalated over time, particularly concerning leisure travel? How did technology, threat levels, and presidential choices impact this? The working vacation defense. How frequently did past presidents use this justification? What tangible evidence typically supported, or refuted, those claims? How does Trump's use compare? Golf obsession. While many presidents golfed, is Trump's frequency and insistence on playing at his own properties historically unique? What about the sheer cost? 3. Ethics, transparency and conflicts of interest. The emoluments clause elephant. When Trump plays at a Trump-owned course, Bedminster, Mar-a-Lago, who pays the fees? How are Secret Service/staff expenses handled at his properties? Does this constitute unconstitutional self-dealing? Profiting from the presidency, can the significant taxpayer expenditure directed to Trump-owned properties be seen as a direct subsidy? How much revenue did Trump Organization properties gain from these presidential visits? Transparency deficit. How accessible were Trump's visitor logs at his golf clubs? How detailed were White House disclosures about costs associated with these trips? How does this compare to Obama-era transparency? The Winter White House and Summer White House, were Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster functionally operating as government facilities during these visits? What were the implications for security, cost, and accessibility? 4. Security, logistics and burden. The Secret Service strain. What specific challenges, manpower, logistics, cost, did Trump's frequent, often last-minute, golf trips pose for the Secret Service? How did this impact their broader mission? Military assets. Detail the use of Air Force One, Marine One, cargo planes, Coast Guard patrols, and local military resources for a single golf outing. What are the hourly operating costs? Local impact. What were the financial and logistical burdens on local police, EMS, and governments, e.g., Palm Beach County, NJ towns near Bedminster, for securing these visits? Security vulnerabilities. Did the predictability and frequency of golf outings create heightened security risks? Were there any documented incidents or close calls? 5. Political, public perception and accountability. Campaign promises versus reality * contrast Trump's 2016 rhetoric, "I wouldn't have time to play golf," criticizing Obama's golfing, with his actual record. How did his base and critics react? Media framing. How did different media outlets, Fox News, CNN, NYT, Walpo, cover the cost and frequency of the golf trips? What narratives emerged? Public opinion *. What did polling reveal about public perception of this spending and time away? Was there partisan divergence? Congressional oversight. Did Congress hold hearings or demand detailed accounting of these costs? What actions, if any, did lawmakers take? What legal or oversight mechanisms exist, or are lacking, to control this spending? The eyes on the ball argument *. Critics argued this focus on golf distracted from critical issues, healthcare, North Korea. Examine specific examples where a golf trip coincided with major events or perceived policy lapses. Forget. 4. The real cry echoing across Trump's fairways was, "Charge it to the taxpayers. We tracked every dollar." 47 days. That's more than the average American worker gets in annual vacation, and Trump burned through it before summer even peaked. The $65 million price tag. That could fund over 1,000 public school teachers for a year. Instead, it funded pars and birdies. Every time Marine One lifted off towards the golf course, it burned roughly $20,000 per hour. We calculated the total fuel bill. It's mind-blowing. Secret Service agents weren't just caddying for intel, they were maxing out government credit cards on golf carts and clubhouse lunches. We have the receipts. Trump railed against Obama's golf outings as presidential malpractice. Then he spent triple the cost in just a fraction of the time. The hypocrisy meter exploded. Mar-a-Lago wasn't just a resort, it became a winter White House funded by your 1040 form. Who really profited from those $200,000 membership fees? While diplomats scrambled and legislation stalled, the president was lining up his 3 wood. Did the ball ever stop rolling on the national credit card? They called it a working vacation. We analyzed the schedules, the visitor logs, or lack thereof, and the press pool reports. The evidence of actual work. It's thinner than a 1-iron. The emoluments clause, a dusty constitutional relic, suddenly became terrifyingly relevant every time Trump charged a Secret Service golf cart rental to himself. Introduction, the staggering statistic in context. Setting the stage, the promise versus the practice, campaign rhetoric versus early actions. Defining vacation and cost, clarifying what constitutes a golf day off, and the scope of costs included in the $65+ million estimate, direct, indirect, agency. The shock value, why 47 days and $65 million in 7 months is historically significant. 2. Forensic accounting, where did $65+ million really go? Air Force One and Air Mobility, hourly operating costs, $142,000 to $206,000 per hour, fuel, crew per diem, maintenance cycles triggered by frequent short hops. Marine One and helicopter support, fleet operations, basing near clubs, hourly costs, $16,000 to $20,000 per hour. Secret Service, overtime, massive, travel per diem, lodging, especially costly at Mar-a-Lago/Bedminster, rental cars, golf cart rentals, food, temporary command post setups. Agent burnout and retention issues. Military and DoD support, C-17/C-5 cargo planes for limos/equipment, Coast Guard patrols, especially Mar-a-Lago, communication specialists, advanced teams. Cost allocation challenges. Local law enforcement reimbursement, examining federal payments, often delayed/insufficient, to Palm Beach County, NJ towns, etc., for overtime, road closures, EMS standby. Lodging and per diem, costs for dozens of staff and agents at high-end resorts, including Trump properties, versus government rates. Golf course fees, investigating who paid greens fees/cart rentals at Trump courses, the White House, Secret Service, or waived. Emoluments flashpoint. The hidden burden, opportunity cost of diverted agency resources, DoD planners, White House schedulers, wear and tear on equipment, administrative overhead tracking expenses. The working vacation mythos, analyzing specific claims of meetings or calls during trips. Quantifying leisure time versus billed work time. Contrast with traditional Oval Office days. Predictability and spontaneity, impact of last-minute decisions on cost and security planning, preventing advance, cheaper bookings. Location, comparing costs of trips to Bedminster versus Mar-a-Lago versus Virginia versus Trump National NJ. Why the preference for his own properties? 4. Historical precedent, how Trump stacks up. Vacation days, comparative analysis of days designated as vacation/recreation by Trump, Obama, Hawaii, Martha's Vineyard, Bush, Crawford, Clinton, Martha's Vineyard, Jackson Hole, Reagan, Rancho del Cielo. Cost per day/trip, isolating golf/leisure trip costs for predecessors using GAO/CRS reports. Adjusting for inflation. Highlighting Trump's significantly higher rate and unit cost. Golf frequency, comparing total rounds played, days spent golfing in the first year. Trump's volume is unmatched. Transparency, contrasting Obama's voluntary disclosure of visitor logs and trip costs with the Trump administration's opacity and resistance. The Emoluments Clause, a constitutional crisis on the fairway. Understanding emoluments, explanation of the foreign and domestic emoluments clauses. Direct payments, analysis of taxpayer funds flowing to Trump-owned properties via Secret Service lodging, rental fees, food, and course fees. Were market rates paid? Indirect benefits, enhanced property value, marketing boost, winter White House, increased membership allure/fees directly tied to presidential patronage. Legal challenges, overview of lawsuits filed by crew, congressional Democrats, and state attorneys general. Arguments presented and roadblocks encountered. Uncharted territory, why Trump's unique business empire created an unprecedented emolument scenario ignored by past presidents. 6. Security and logistics, the immense burden of the presidential putter. Secret Service, strain on personnel, forced overtime, canceled leave, relocation stress, budget overrun specifically linked to golf travel, challenges securing multiple private courses frequently. Military mobilization, detailed look at the airlift, communications, and naval resources deployed for a single weekend trip. Cost of maintaining readiness for frequent moves. Local law enforcement, financial strain on counties/towns, disruption to local communities, road closures, traffic, delayed federal reimbursements creating local budget shortfalls. Vulnerability assessment, expert opinions on whether the predictable pattern increased risk. Any known threats or incidents occurring near golf courses during visits. 7. Political fallout and public perception. Hypocrisy narrative, compilation of Trump's tweets/videos criticizing Obama's golfing juxtaposed with his own record. Media amplification and opposition messaging. Base reaction, did core supporters care? Were there attempts to justify it, he's working, he deserves it, fake news on cost. Polling data analysis. Critics' fury, how Democrats and government watchdogs framed the issue, waste, arrogance, dereliction. Use in political fundraising and messaging. Media coverage spectrum, comparing Fox News framing, minimizing cost, emphasizing work, versus CNN/MSNBC/Walpo/NYT, highlighting cost, hypocrisy, ethics. Impact on public understanding. Congressional inaction, why did GOP-controlled Congress largely avoid scrutiny? Lack of oversight hearings, blocked requests for detailed cost accounting. 8. What else could $65 million do? Argument. Tangible comparisons, funding teachers, police officers, VA medical care, infrastructure projects, Pell Grants, school lunches. Specific examples with dollar figures. Opportunity cost, what policy initiatives, diplomatic efforts, or crisis responses might have received more attention without the frequent absences. Symbolism, what message does such spending send about priorities, frugality, and connection to average citizens struggling financially. 9. Systemic issues and lack of accountability. The blank check problem, examining the legal and budgetary mechanisms that allow POTUS spending with minimal real-time oversight. The necessary expense doctrine. Transparency failures, weaknesses in existing reporting requirements for presidential travel costs. Resistance from the Trump administration to disclosure norms. Emoluments enforcement gap, lack of clear statutory enforcement mechanisms for the emoluments clauses, leaving it to lawsuits. Reforming the system, proposed solutions, mandatory detailed cost reporting, stricter ethics rules regarding properties, defined leisure versus work criteria, congressional budget controls for non-essential travel. Conclusion, beyond the Greens fee, legacy and lessons. Summarizing the scale, reiterating the unprecedented nature of the time and cost within the first 7 months. Ethical verdict, assessing the self-dealing and emoluments concerns as a dangerous precedent. Accountability failure, critiquing the lack of effective checks on presidential travel spending and ethics. Lasting impact, how this episode exposed vulnerabilities in oversight and normalized extreme personal expense at taxpayer cost. The unanswered question, is this the new normal for presidential leisure, or can accountability be restored? What must change? Final provocation, was this $65 million the price tag for normalizing presidential profiteering and eroding public trust in government stewardship? Deep dives on specific trips, choose 5 to 7 significant golf outings. Detail the exact dates, location, entourage size, documented schedule, minute-by-minute pool reports if available, specific costs broken down, AF1 flight cost, estimated SS overtime for that weekend, local reimbursement requests, any notable events happening simultaneously, media coverage, visitor list controversies, if any. Detailed financial tables, create expansive tables comparing costs per trip type, Bedminster weekend versus Mar-a-Lago week, breakdowns of the $65 million by category, e.g., $28 million air mobility, $22 million SS overtime and per diem, $8 million local reimbursements, $5 million military support, $2 million lodging/other. Comparisons to Obama/Bush costs for similar trips, adjusted for inflation. Expert testimony, incorporate extended quotes or synthesized analysis from government ethics experts, Norm Eisen, Richard Painter, presidential historians, Michael Beschloss, Douglas Brinkley, Secret Service veterans, discussing strain, budget analysts, CRS, GAO reports, constitutional law professors, on emoluments. Legal document analysis, dissect key filings from major emoluments lawsuits, explaining the arguments, evidence presented, e.g., receipts from Trump properties, and judicial reasoning in rulings. Local impact case studies, deep dives on Palm Beach County and a NJ County near Bedminster. Interview local officials, police chiefs, business owners. Detail specific costs incurred, budget impacts, community sentiment. Psychological and leadership analysis, explore, with expert input, the potential impact of such frequent leisure time on decision-making, crisis response, staff morale, and perception of work ethic. Contrast with historical examples of presidential work habits. Comprehensive timeline, an annotated timeline weaving together golf trips, major policy events, healthcare votes, North Korea threats, Russia investigations, Trump's public statements/critiques of others' vacations, and key revelations about costs. Visualizing the cost, detailed descriptions of infographics needed, e.g., stacks of cash representing $65 million versus school supplies, a map with cost bubbles over each golf location, a flow chart of taxpayer money to Trump properties. Oversight failure chapter, expand the analysis of congressional inaction, specific letters from lawmakers requesting info that were ignored, failed legislative attempts to mandate reporting, committee leadership decisions not to pursue.